Hi loves, welcome back to my channel. So today I am bringing to you the books that I really want to read before this year is over. So two reasons why I'm doing this. First of all, I really want to yap about these books. Second of all, this is also me kind of really bullying myself into actually reading these books, because if you notice, a lot of the books on this list are fantasy. I think I have six with just one new addition. Out of those seven, five of them are fantasy books, and that's not usually my drift. That's not usually my vibe. Like, I will pick up a fantasy romance, a romantasy, an epic fantasy, a high fantasy, sci-fi fantasy, whatever fantasy related once in a while, and sometimes I enjoy them, sometimes I don't, but they're not books that I actively reach for. So it's very surprising to me that I have this TBR that feels to me like a priority TBR before this year is over, and then almost all of them are fantasy books. So I decided to come share them with you guys, so that even if I don't read them, like as I'm getting the end of the year, I remember that I made this video and it's like I have to save some face to at least read some, or at least just start, because if not, I think I'm just going to like cower away and would probably never get to any of them. So let me share that with you guys. Also, let me know if you have any books that you really want to read before the year is over down in the comments. Yeah, maybe I would, get some new recommendations from there, because I feel like I'm running a bit thin on recommendations, but then that's just me getting in my head. So anyways, let me know, you guys. Let's get into it. So the first book on the TBR, or the first book that I really hope I can read before this year is over, is Blood Feast by Vela Roth. So this is book 8 in the Blood Grace or Blood Mercy series. Hello. I don't know why I always forget. I feel like what is supposed to be the most important information about these books. But this is book 8. I have a series highlights video up for this book on my channel. It was filmed a while ago, but if you're still in any form of manner interested, feel free to check that out. But originally, the Blood Mercy series is a series that is centered around these fantastical creatures called Hesperines, and they are fashioned after like vampires, in the sense where they feed on blood. They are more favorable with the night than the daytime, even though they can still survive in the daytime in sunlight, right, under certain circumstances. But the thing is that they are not vampires. I mean, they do have the kind of same characteristics, okay, but the thing with this is they are called Hesperines because they worship this god, called this goddess, rather very important, called Hespera, who apparently is known as this sort of heretic god. But then that's just because of the patriarchal system that the female lead hometown sort of adopts, because the female lead's hometown, they have goddesses, but the goddesses are mainly in submission to the gods, and that kind of rules their system, right? So in the Blood Mercy series, or the Blood Grace series, we are following Cassia, who is the bastard daughter of the king of Tenebra. Tenebra is this country that, is highly adapted to a very patriarchal system, very stifling, very suffocating. It also does not help that she is sort of an illegitimate daughter. The series does start when Hesperines are coming into Tenebra for sort of peace talks, and she kind of wants to meet a Hesperine for some reason or other, which obviously I can't tell you why. Like, I have to read the book to find out, I guess. And yeah, for the most part, it's a forbidden love between her and one of the ambassadors in the Hesperine party. But more than that, there are also like a lot of things going on in this story. I really just like it. This is my favorite romantasy series yet. And this is, I think, the last book released in the series. I also have a feeling that it's the last book for this series. I actually do not want to confirm that because of how emotionally attached I am to these characters, and the fact that I'm even sitting down here talking about book 8 is like a huge deal. I think in the intro of this video, I mentioned how I'm not a huge fan of, like, fantasy and all that. But the fact that I've read a fantasy series up to book 7 should just automatically say a lot. Like, one thing I really, really love about this is how it does not feel confined to, the ongoing tropifications that most romanticists find themselves in. Like, yes, it's a forbidden love at the start. There are a couple of tropes that you could apply to the books in this series, but it is very clear that the story was not told with tropification intention. Like, even when you follow the author, because I do follow the author, or you see people talk about this book, tropes are like one of the last things people ever bring up in concern to this book. Another added plus to the series is that, Leo, who is the Hesperian ambassador that ends up getting involved with Cassia, is like the most green flag man I've ever read. Almost, as at last year, he would have been the most green flag fictional man. But then I've watched a couple of dramas this year that I'm like, okay, but even if he's still like one of the best out there. And if you know anything about me, you know that I have a huge preference for so-called soft boys and romance, green flag men. I'm not out here all about that, morally great. Like, no, please give me a softie, give me a nerd to the core, give me a guy that blushes, a guy that worries about his acne and stuff like that. Like, those are my favorite type of men to read in romances. Blood Face is what I'm looking forward to. I actually started reading the first book in the series. I want to see if I'll have enough patience to like rewalk my way back to book 8. And not because I don't remember anything that happens, but just to sort of prolong the experience. But then at the same time, again, it's just like, might as well, I might lose patience somewhere in the middle and just like get it over with and read the last book, which I'm actually very excited for, because book 7 left off on a very high note. It's like new life, new beginnings type thing, and that's like as much as I'm going to say, because that's book 7 and you can't say anything about book 7 without spoiling any other things, right? And so it's like really interesting with all the possibilities of things that could happen with how book 7 ended. It's like, anytime I think about this series, I'm just like, I'm gonna have a good time, but then at the same time, I don't want to let go. Next books on the TBR, I say books because it is a trilogy of which I have the physical copy for book 1 and book 2. That is the Famished Road trilogy by Ben Okri. Okay, so I've had these books, first of all, on my shelf for a long time. I think since last year, beginning of last year, if I'm not mistaken. And because I've had them on my shelf, I've wanted to read them. These are the books. So this is the first book, which is The Famished Road. It's a huge book. So this has it's about 574 pages worth of storytelling, and this is a page in this book, an average page in this book. Like, so like, that's one thing that has really sort of discouraged me from reading this book, because I've read longer books this year, but I read most of them in e-format. So I just think looking at it physically like this is very intimidating. Once in a while, I pick up these books and I look at the things written behind it, and I'm just like, high praise, so much high praise. Okra is incapable of writing a boring sentence. So it's like a dazzling achievement for any writer in any language. This is a book to generate apostles. Apostles. A book to generate apostles. Really, it sounds so very different from the things you hear people write on books when they want to kind of like praise books. They feel very emotional, right? Rather, they feel like, I don't know how to explain it, but they just give me that sort of feeling that makes me think that I wonder what these people felt to be putting out these words. And I know that obviously some of these are a bit exaggerated. Like, I'm not naive. So let's get to what the book is about. This follows Azaro, who is a spirit child, and in many traditions of Nigeria, spirit children exist between life and death. So Azara is born into a difficult world and awakens with a smile on his face. Despite belonging to a spirit world made of enchantment where there is no suffering, Azara chooses to stay in the land of the living, to feel it, endure it, know it, and love it. This is his story. I am a big sucker for books that explore the do I call it the joy of humanity, not just books like dramas, movies, whatever. Because in fantasy settings where it's like there are all these supernatural beings that could probably have it better wherever they go, but anytime they come in contact with humans, even though they sort of start off comparing how much better where they're from is, they get to, I don't know, somehow connect, somehow empathize, somehow understand the grandiose of humanity. So, like seeing this very person, coming from a place where apparently there's no suffering, choosing to stay in this, land of suffering, which is the land of the living. I think this book is going to touch on those themes a little bit. The last book in the trilogy is titled Infinite Riches, and somehow that just almost confirms to me what I'm talking about when I'm talking about exploring the sort of grandiose of humanity, of living, of being alive, of being a human being. I think if you look at some of my best fictional fantasy works, at least most of them should have the theme of, supernatural beings exploring what makes humanity better. Because I think there's a lot to love about being human. So in that manner, I am truly, truly looking forward to getting to the Famished Road trilogy by Ben Okri. So also, if you've read any of these books and you have any thoughts on them whatsoever, positive, negative, neutral, let me know down in the comments. Yeah, if these books are familiar to you in any way, your input would be very much highly appreciated. Next book, which is also the last physical book on this TBR, is The Gender Secrets, which was a gift from my dad to me sometime towards the ending of last year. And this one is pretty okay. Like is big. Yeah, let's see how many pages this has. About 400, and but it's, you open it up and it's assuring. It's like there's a lot I can do with all this space. And I love it. So this was given to me, and once again I somehow found myself with the physical copy of book 2 before even ever hearing about this series. The Gender Game was actually, that's book 1, was the first book I read in this series, because I got this as a gift and read the back to know what the series is about. And I was like, oh yes, I'm scared. This is a premise so interesting, so promising, with a lot of possibilities. I cannot wait to see how the author deals exactly with this, especially in light of a lot of the topics, I guess, that come up these days on the internet in relation to like gender roles. I think fantasy books are a really, really good way to sort of explore societal issues, because they kind of take the extremes. I appreciate it a lot, to be honest. I do appreciate it. Like, you think that because it's a fantasy book, it's going to be much detached from reality, but I think that it being a fantasy gives it a lot of the allowance to explore so many things that would require heavier nuance if those things were brought up in a contemporary, romance, without any sort of fantastical or magical elements to it. So the Gender Game, the series in itself, is a series set in this world that is divided into two. So a quick picture of the map, maybe I'll put a b-roll for you guys, but we have the Patros, the Matros, and then the Patros and Matros are divided by this Veil River that is nicknamed the Suicide Stretch. So obviously, like, interactions between these two parts are not going to be a piece of cake, right? And the Patros, as the name implies, okay, is a place where men rule, where the patriarchy is in place, right? And then the Matros, on the other hand, is a place where women rule, and the patriarchy is, the matriarchy rather, is in play. In the patriarchs, what we do see is that, women are like very submissive. They are safer with a man, with a husband, with a father figure than on their own, right? And they're pretty much relegated to the background than to the forefront of society. But in the mattress, not only are the men sort of relegated to the background, the men are tested for having sort of violent tendencies. And if they, come out that test looking like they are more fit to be men of the pattress than men of the mattress, they are literally done away with, right? So not only does the mattress encourage the submissiveness of men, it actually like does away with the ones that apparently do not meet that test, right? So that's, kind of what's going on in this world. And in book one, which is the gender game, the main girl, who is from the mattress side, has a younger brother who has just gone through this test and apparently has failed. So what the mattress tells their people is that these men are sent to the mines away from the city to work, but she is not so convinced. She very skeptical about it and kind of wants to know that her brother is in good hands, and so she has this elaborate plan to send her brother over to the patron's side to stay with some distant relatives. And when that happens, she is caught and then employed by the government of the mattress to infiltrate the pattress or something, right? So that is what the gender game series, starts off being about. I read the gender game, which is book one. That was first book I read this year because I was so excited to get into it. And I think the thing holding me back the most so far from having gone further in this series, from reading this book, is a fear that this is a premise so promising and interesting that if it is fumbled, I will just be so disappointed. I think a book that has somehow had the opportunity to explore what happens when we take all these opinions to the extreme and then just have a final separation between both systems. I think this book can either do so well or do so bad, and I honestly do not want to find out that it did so bad, which is why I have kind of like held back. So I'm really looking forward to it, but at the same time, like, I'm really scared. Next book that I told you guys about in my mid-year freakout tag, if you've not checked that out, what are you doing? Why? Okay, maybe you didn't know about it, but now you do, so feel free to check it out when you're done with this. So that is the Tatami Galaxy by Tomiko Morimi, originally a Japanese novel. This was translated to English by Emily Balistrieri. So yeah, I talked a bit about this in the media freakout tag, so I won't spend a lot of time on this. I read The Night is Short. I don't know. Let me check. Yes, I read The Night is Short, Walk On Girl by the same author, and just loved the freshness of it, the imaginative things of it, how sort of wholesome it was, how fun it was, and how it really tied together to be a very beautiful story, despite starting off as something that you kind of read or you should turn to when you're high, right? So I really liked that. I was like, who is this author? And I need to check out more things they've written. And apparently the Tatami Galaxy is their most popular work. This has also been adapted into, TV. Light is Short, Walk On Girl is about, these two people. One has a crush on the other, and then it's about a lot of these accidental encounters they do have with them, and then also some other people. And in that sort of silly fun premise, there are a lot of profound moments in that. So finding out that the Dynamic Galaxy is about an unfulfilled college student who goes through different alternate timelines, like four of them. First of all, it gives the Midnight Library vibes, which I've never read, just because I hear people say it's giving too much, non-fiction, more self-help. So I think with this book exploring, you know, the what would have been, what should be, what would probably never be, with these alternate timelines, giving the you know, freshness of technique of storytelling that this author uses, makes me more excited for this. The next book on this list is so laughable, like to myself, at myself, that I have this book on my TBR. I won't get to why. And at that, a priority TBR, because who am I kidding? Like, who do I think I am? You know, what do I think I know? Why do I think this is a feasible plan? Okay, and that book is Miss Born by Brandon Sanderson. I've heard about Brandon Sanderson since forever. Like, even when I first discovered that there was a space on YouTube that people just came to talk about books, whether they were writing it or reading it, he was one of the first people I followed on BookTube. Okay, so Brandon Sanderson is an old familiar name to me, but as familiar as that name is, I have never picked up a single thing he has written. Why? Because it's just very intimidating. Do you see the sizes of those books? And then it's like high fantasy, or epic fantasy, if I'm not mistaken, not even like romantasy. And I'm just like, I don't even vibe with this genre at the beginning. So like maybe later in my 30s, 40s, or in my retirement age, if I live long enough, God willing, right, I will like have the time to like pick those books up, if that makes any sense. So that has been my thoughts towards Brandon Sanderson books. Like, I don't doubt that he writes good stories, because I hear a lot of stunning reviews. Like, I hardly see negative reviews for anything the man has written. I think the only negative thing I've seen somebody say about the book, not that I go looking for it, and it wasn't even about the books, it was about how quickly he releases books. So I think that's about it. But other than that, you know, it's just high praise, high praise, high praise. And that's why that high praise, I've never been so, you know, or I've never had or possessed this strong desire to be like, I want to read something by Brandon Sanderson, just because I think I am not up to the task. Okay. But it hasn't been long. I saw somebody buy the very, very special edition for this book, Miss Bond by Brandon Sanderson, and they were doing an unboxing and they were opening it up. And in the beginning, it's a bunch of this arts or pictures that just stimulated me. Like, another reason, okay, another reason why I don't vibe with fantasy, or one of the major reasons that I'm not like rushing to pick up a fantasy, is because of visualization issues. I think, you know, when it comes to a fantastical world, the world building is very important, and you know, visualization helps with that. I'm not the best at visualization. If I'm reading a book, like, the most my brain can do is to probably imagine these characters and have this very blurry background with them. But then with fantasy books, the background truly matters to the story. I've noticed a lot of the time, right? And my brain apparently is not so good at that. Like, it just doesn't do it well, which is also another reason why you see me consume more of my fantasy in visual form, in like, you know, dramas and movies, than in books, just because that visualization is very, very important to me. So when I see these books and I see this art that looks so stunning, so breathtaking, I'm like, okay, yes, this is a world that, you know, now that I've seen, I kind of want to experience. So that was how this book ended up on the TBR. And it's like, at this point, do you dare to call yourself like a book content creator? If you've not read, like, obviously you can, but you get my drift. Like, if you've not read something by Brandon Sanderson. Okay, so yeah, that's how this ended up on this list. I feel like even if there's a possibility I can possibly read everything on this list before this year is over, Miss Born by Brandon Sanderson, if I don't get to it, I'm not mad at myself, because it feels like the most intimidating one on this list. Like, sixth one, the second to the last, finally a book right up my alley, right up my lane, you know, in my comfort zone, things I like to read. And that is The Seven Sisters, which is book one in a series by Lucinda Riley. So this book came on my TBR because I saw a bookstagrammer or a book content creator on Instagram talk about some books they really liked or some underrated books, and they pulled out that book and the size of that book. I think I think that book can be like these two books joined together in terms of size. And it piqued my interest. It piqued my interest because firstly it was a contemporary book, and so yeah, I don't think a lot of those pages are going to have anything to do with like world building or unnecessary sort of like plots. And I think a lot of those pages are going to be a lot more about characters. Now, if you've watched my media freakout tag, you should know that already. Just that thought alone had me hooked. Like seeing the size of that book and then just thinking to myself that this is probably going to be allowing us to explore, allowing us to watch, allowing us to walk side by side with these characters for this large number of pages. I'm seated. Listen, I'm a character girly. I always say, I don't care about your plots. If your characters are not giving anything, you can have the best plot and your book will be meh to me. Give us characters. They're the driving force behind stories, not just elements to push plots forward, which is also another reason why I'm not the hugest fan of fantasy books, because most times with fantasy books it's about the plot, what is happening in this fantastical world, the thing that we are here to explore, and then sometimes the characters just end up feeling very, very lackluster. Like, really looking forward to this. Okay, but another thing is that this is called the Seven Sisters. So I'm guessing in this vein we are going to be following a bunch of sisters. Another thing I'm really into this year is entertainment in any form of manner, whether fictional, in non-fictional, in form of like variety shows that explore like family dynamics. I have a certain bias towards the ones that explore complex mother-daughter relationships in whatever form or manner they may appear. But outside of that, there is also like just different members of families and how they interact. I think the family unit is something that I have come to have so much interest in over the years, like having been done with school, currently in the workforce, but still living at home with my own nuclear family, is something that has truly just piqued my interest, if that makes any sense. And so I like to see different forms of this in my entertainment, and have characters in those books explore those dynamics in different manners. And this year has been like one of the major things I look for when I'm looking for entertainment. So now this is this huge book that, to me, I think just is going to give us a lot of character. And not only just like, it's not just any type of character, but like sisters, right? And so I'm thinking to myself, this has an opportunity to be a banger. Like, I have high hopes for this book. Out of every book on this list, this book I have the highest hope for, especially because it's contemporary. It's like right up my alley. Like, the other books are like, even though it's my favorite romantic series, or it has like the most promising premise to me, or it explores a theme that I really love, this, I think, just does all of that and then is in my favorite type of book to read, which is a contemporary book. Okay, so I'm just thinking this could be great. But then you know what they say about expectation: the higher your expectation, the bigger your disappointment if it goes south, which is another, like, you see why it's very important for me to make this video, because I can just get in my head about all these books and then never end up reading them. So this is me bullying myself into reading this book. So The Seventh Sister by Lucinda Riley is the first book in a series I hear is based on the Seven Sister star constellation, which truly does not mean a lot to me. Like, I have no, what Seven Sister star constellation means nothing at this point. And honestly, I don't think that I really wanted to mean anything to me till I've dipped my foot into the story to decide if I wanted to mean anything to me or not. But in this book, the first book in this series, what we follow is Maya, who is one of the five adopted daughters of this man. and the man has passed away. He left behind, you know, clues for these daughters to trace their origins if they wanted to. And so Maya embarks on that journey in this story. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking so much forward to it. Like I said, family dynamics, that's what I'm here for, because not only do we get to explore Maya and her adopted sisters, she's going to look for her, you know, original family, right? And I guess that brings for a lot of mess, given the fact that she did end up being adopted. So it all sounds very exciting in my head. Originally, it was just this six that anytime I'm like, what do I really want to read before this year is over? Or anytime I'm like, what do I pick up next? It's like this six. But then one intimidation or the other, one fear or the other is pulling me back from reading them. But very recently, I was able to obtain 100 Years of Solitude. This book, I feel like if I read this book, I would carry my shoulders up as a learned person. Okay, because I hear about this book, but I've never like heard people talk about enjoying this book in fictional terms. Like I hear people talk about it as this very sort of philosophical read, but it's fictional at the same time, right? And then also I hear people like talk about it as a book that puts them to sleep no matter how hard they try. And so I was able to sort of get that, like I think 2 or 3 days ago, I got my hands on the ebook. So I'm like, this I might want to read this before this year is over, just to, you know, say that I read something like very serious and something like very, you know, highly respected as a fictional. But if I filmed this video any earlier, it would have just been those first six. Now, do I know what the 100 Years of Solitude is about? No, I don't. All I know about this book is that it has made a name for itself, and I'm yet to decide whether that is a good name or a bad name, but a name nonetheless. That is it for all the books I'm looking forward to read before this year is over. Hopefully I can do it. Like I'm filming this with so much confidence that now that I've made this video, I'm going to have like, I don't know, a 40% success rate at the least of having read this book. So I guess we'll just have to check in at the end of the year, I guess. So yeah, I'll see you guys in my next video. Till then, hope you are having the best time reading. I hope you're reading things that you love, and I hope you are not just mindlessly consuming literature. Have fun. Till my next video. Bye.